The next step in the paint process on our 65 Chevelle after the final layer of primer was more sanding, in which Nathan used a DuraBlock and wet sanded the entire body and all of the body panels down to a 600 grit finish. And that was in preparation for a layer of sealer. The sealer is kind of a barrier layer between the primer and the paint, so the paint doesn't leach into the primer. It's got a firm foundation to adhere to. It also provides a uniform color over the whole car so that the paint colors have what they call holdout and look uniform over the entire car surface. Once the body was sealed, Nathan didn't do any surface prep to the sealer. He just tack ragged it and wiped it down with wax and grease remover so that it was ready to accept the color coat. And the color is a BMW color called Estoril Blue, and Nathan used the DuPont Chroma Premiere base coat system for this. He mixed up the proper ratio of reducer to the color and started shooting his color layers. And this blue has a lot of metallic in it, so the trick is to give the car multiple coats of color. The first few are just to get blue on the car, and then after that you want to try and get the metallic pattern to lay out uniformly, over the whole car. But our strategy is going to be to put a couple layers of color coat on the car, put it back together, and then shoot the whole thing together with more color before the outside is cleared, so we'll be guaranteed that all the panels match when they're next to each other. After the initial color coats flashed off or started to dry, Nathan again wiped the car down with a tack rag to get rid of any dust, and the strategy was to shoot some clear, but only in the door jambs and the areas that would be hard to get to with the body panels assembled. So the entire car was masked except for the area below the hood, in the door jambs, the trunk jam area, and then Nathan mixed up a batch of DuPont Hot Clear and used the appropriate reducer and activator for that, and sprayed several layers of the clear coat over the door jambs and in that trunk jam area. And now we finally got to see what this color is going to look like, and it's crazy. I think there's about 9 or 10 different components to this blue. There's silvers, there's blues, there's a little bit of purple, and when the light hits it, everything starts to change. So it's going to be a really neat looking car out in the sun. Once the clear had set up on our 65 Chevelle's body tub on the rotisserie, we rolled it out and brought in all the body panels and hung them so that we could shoot color on both sides of all the panels that required a color on the inside, like the bottom of the deck lid and inside the doors. When we do the doors, we like to make sure that the entire door shell is covered, the skin on the outside, the shell on the inside, because sometimes you see a car where they do a paint job, and if you take the door panel off, the middle of the door area is the color of the previous paint job. But we wanted to make sure that everything was covered as uniformly as possible. So we hung those and sprayed both sides of those, and then we sprayed the exterior surfaces of the fenders and the hood. We also shot little things like some of the trim parts and the door hinges. Now, one way to check to guarantee that you've got a good color pattern is to use what's called a SunGun. This is made by 3M, and it's a high-intensity light that mimics the color temperature of natural sunlight, which makes it easy to see if you have any thin spots or any weirdness in your color layout. So Nathan checked the whole car with the SunGun to make sure that everything was nice and consistent. And then, again, because we wanted to clear the areas that would be inaccessible when the car was reassembled, we masked off the exterior surface of the deck lid and the doors and the hood and the fenders. Let's tell me what this little cool tool is you got.
This is a feather edger, or soft edge masker. It actually folds the tape for me. It folds it over so I have a little edge around everything that I can tape. The clear won't hard edge. It'll leave a nice little soft edge.
So part of that doesn't stick?
No. The folded over part, I stick it right to the very edge of the panel on the edge of the crest. So when I blow clear on here, it'll taper off from nothing to my 2 coats of clear on all my jambs.
So point out what part we're painting right now?
We're going to paint all the jambs in here.
Okay.
Then we'll come back once the car's assembled, put another 2 coats of color on the car to make everything even, then clear the outsides.
So our soft edge is to keep the clear from here ending up on here, but that'll be masked off like this one is.
Yes. And the reason we do that is the little clear edge, if it gets out here on the outside of our panel, we have the little edge, there's a potential for it to wrinkle and cause problems. So we gotta mask everything off, clear it, and then we'll come back and scuff any little blowouts or anything. We'll have to make sure we get sanded all the way back off to the edge so they don't wrinkle or lift or do all kinds of weird stuff.
Mm-hmm. And the final step after all that had set up was to remount the body on the frame, and then we could start the reassembly process. And we could work on the car to make it a running, driving car with the outside still in base coat. So if we bumped it or scratched it, we could easily fix the base coat. And plus, remember, we wanted to give the car a couple more coats of color over the whole thing so that the panels matched, you know, fender to door, door to hood, and deck lid and all that kind of stuff. Because eventually, it's going to go into the spray booth, get a couple layers of color on the whole thing, and clear on the whole thing, and then the car is going to be just about finished.